Hey there guys, how's it going? Hope you're all having a great Christmas. So today is Christmas Day, and those of you who saw my last video which I made on Christmas Eve, where I reviewed the movie Jack Frost, you'll know that I told you guys that today I'm going to be reviewing another Christmas movie, and that movie is going to be the movie Elf from 2003. Now, let me just start this review by saying that not only is Elf, in my personal opinion, the greatest Christmas movie of all time, in my personal opinion, this is one of the best comedies of all time. This movie is one of the funniest and most well-written comedy movies I have ever seen. So I saw the movie, I believe it was either on its release day or the day after when it came out in 2003. I remember that day so specifically, and it's one of them movies that if you look at the marketing for this movie, you'd see that it stars Will Ferrell, and it looks like a very cheesy, goofy, and by-the-books Christmas comedy. However, if you actually go and see this movie, it's one of them movies that once you actually watch it, it blows you away by how well-written, well-paced, and how funny the movie is. Now, the movie was directed by Jon Favreau, who, in my personal opinion, now, whatever you think of Jon Favreau as a person, as a director, he's absolutely, in my opinion, one of the best in the business. I mean, this guy, just as a director, I can't think of a single movie of his, except maybe Iron Man 2, which I know that there was a lot of studio interference with that one. But other than that, I can't think of a single movie of his which I haven't enjoyed. I think that he's a really, really underrated director, and it's clear to see why businesses like Disney and LucasArts and Marvel and all these other companies basically rely on this guy to save their ass when they're starting to lose the faith in fans, because this guy is just such a good director. Like, he's so in touch with what makes a film good. He's so great at how to pace a movie and just how to stage certain scenes. Like, he's one of these directors who is an absolute master of pacing, and I find him to be just really, really good at his job. I really do. Like I said, I've never really seen a movie of his that I didn't like. And to basically sum up the plot of this movie, it's based on a character called Buddy the Elf, played by Will Ferrell, in, without a shadow of a doubt, the best role of Will Ferrell's career. You know, he gives the performance of his career here, and I've never really been a big fan of Will Ferrell or his movies. I find them to be really childish and really stupid, if I'm being honest. But what this movie showed is that if you give him the right director, the right script, some good writers and a good supporting cast, you can really get a good performance out of someone like Will Ferrell, and the guy can be genuinely funny. And this is without a doubt, in my opinion, like I said, his best performance and my favourite movie of his without a shadow of a doubt. And he plays Buddy the Elf. In the beginning of the movie, he's an orphan baby, and Santa Claus crawls down the chimney, and while he's opening his sack to place presents under the tree, eat his milk and cookies and whatnot, Buddy the Elf crawls into the sack and ends up getting taken back to the North Pole by Santa. He's then discovered in the sack by the other elves, and rather than take him home to the orphanage, they decide to keep him. He's adopted by an old elf called Papa Elf, and they basically raise him and train him to be an elf. Now, while this is happening, he's of course a human, so he's way, way bigger than the other elves, and as a result of that, he kind of gets made fun of. He's not as small or as agile or as naturally inclined to be able to build toys as some of the other elves, so he's kind of an outcast. And then when he reaches a certain age, his adopted father, Papa Elf, has to tell him that basically, yeah, you're adopted, you're not a natural elf. I mean, how he didn't realise, I've no idea, but that's kind of the joke. You know, he doesn't realise that despite the fact he's like 6'4", he isn't an elf. He just thinks he's big for an elf. So that's kind of a little bit of comedy there, and a little bit of self-awareness from the movie. And yeah, basically, he has to go back to New York City, which is where he's originally from, to find his father, played by James Caan. And it's a really, really interesting and really funny and really quirky story. And what's so funny about it is the whole fish out of water feel. You know, when Buddy the Elf goes back to New York City, and he still has that same mindset, like that he's in the North Pole and everybody sees the world the same way that he does. But unfortunately that isn't the case, and he ends up getting himself into loads of trouble, causes a load of shenanigans, and this is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. To give you guys an example of just how well written the comedy in this movie is, and how it foreshadows certain things, there's a scene in this movie where Buddy the Elf is walking through the streets of New York City, and because he's so naive and so childlike, he takes things so literally. So he walks by like this shitty little coffee shop, and it says on the window of this crappy little coffee shop, it says, "World's best cup of coffee." So he walks in and he starts screaming at the top of his voice. He's like, "Congratulations, you did it. You made the world's best cup of coffee." And then he leaves. And then later on in the movie, there's a scene where he's on a date and he takes his girl to this crappy little coffee shop and he's got her blindfolded. And she sips a cup of coffee and she's like, "It's a crappy cup of coffee." And he's like, "No, it's the world's best cup of coffee." So there's like some funny comedy like that in this movie, like some really subtle and just well written jokes that you don't see coming like that, and I thought it was really funny. There's also another scene in the movie where he walks into a department store, and the department store, you know, the kind of the toy section has got like a Christmas theme to it, so the staff are dressed as elves and there's Christmas decorations everywhere and stuff. And basically the manager of the store sees him and he's like, "What are you doing? You can shop on your break," because he thinks that Buddy is one of the staff. So he's like lecturing him. He's like, "Get your ass in there, get back to work." And he's like, "I'm sorry," because he doesn't know why he's being brought in. And again, he ends up working in this store, like even though he doesn't even work there, because the guy tells him to get back in and get back to work. He ends up working there for free, and it's really funny, man. And he says things like, he's like, "Smiling's my favorite," and he's like, "Make work your favorite." There's a scene where there's one of them like department store Santas, and he's sitting talking to the kids, and Will Ferrell goes up to him and he's like, "You're not the real Santa," and he basically pulls his beard off. And all the kids scream, and they end up getting into a big brawl, like a big fight in the middle of this department store, and it's just really funny, man. This movie's so funny. There's some really, really well written humour. I mentioned earlier that his dad in the movie is played by James Caan, and he's kind of like a stuck-up businessman who, again, it's kind of like, in a way, what Michael Keaton was in Jack Frost. You know, he's always too busy with work, and he's never got time for his family. And through Christmas and the spirit of Christmas, he has to find the meaning of Christmas and the meaning of family and whatnot. And there are a few cool, nice little messages there that pretty much every Christmas movie has. However, it's done in a much more satirical way here. You know, the sort of the father-son relationship between Will Ferrell, who's very childlike and very free-spirited and happy and goofy, whereas James Caan, who's very like, you know, really stoic businessman, you know, very serious, you know, always wears a suit and is very proper, and like sort of the way they bounce off one another and the contrast between them is just so funny, man. Like, it's really, really funny. There's a scene in the movie which is one of my favourites, one of the funniest scenes, where he basically walks in on a business meeting, and his dad, played by James Caan, is in a business meeting with a character who's played by Peter Dinklage, and Peter Dinklage is of course a dwarf, and Buddy the Elf doesn't know what dwarves are, so he thinks that he's another elf. So he starts going up to him and he's like, "I didn't know you had elves working here." And it causes like a big massive brawl again, like everywhere he goes, just because of his naive innocence. He always offends people and ends up causing trouble, and it's just really funny, man. Like the acting and the writing in those scenes is just so funny, man. And again, he ends up in trouble, and he doesn't know why. Like, he's got no idea why. Like, he gets his ass kicked, and he's like, he must be a South Pole elf. Oh, it's really funny, man. Like, the dialogue in this movie is so funny. It really is. I mean, there's a love story in the movie where he meets this girl in the department store who's dressed as an elf, played by what's her name? Zoe Deschanel, who plays the girl. And he goes up to her, and basically he's just talking to her totally innocently and wholeheartedly. Like he comments on how she's dressed as an elf, and he'll say things like, it's good to see someone else who shares an affinity for elf culture. And what's funny about it is she thinks that he's chatting her up. Like, she thinks it's sort of a pickup line, whereas it's not. It's just him being totally genuine and innocent. And when he when he eventually asks her out on a date, he basically does it in, again, a very, very naive and innocent kind of way. Like, he'll say, let's go and get some food. Real food, not candy. And basically, again, she thinks he's being pretentious. Like, she thinks he's trying to chat her up and trying to be charming. So she ends up falling for it, and she ends up going on a date with him, when really that's just who he is. It's like his naive, childlike innocence was endearing to her. You know, she was endeared by it, so she ends up going on a date with him. And funnily enough, you actually do kind of buy the relationship between them. Like, as weird as it is, it's as if she was kind of, in a way, attracted to that weird eccentricity of his, and it really does come across as quite a sweet relationship, and it's quite funny. I really did kind of like it. And again, they go on dates and they do funny things, and it's really funny, man. This is a really, really good movie. The comedy in the movie is excellent. The acting is brilliant. It's funny, the contrast between Will Ferrell, who's, like I said, so energetic and eccentric, whereas everybody else is just all normal and, you know, even overly serious at times. And the way that he behaves is just such a stark contrast to everybody else in the movie. It really, really works, man. This is a really funny movie. It's really, really well made. You know, it has great acting, great writing. It has a great musical score. And I just think there's something really, really unpretentious and genuine about this movie. You know, it's a movie that's just so funny and so entertaining. It's not a movie that takes itself seriously. It's not a movie that's overblown in any way. Like, it's a very, very well paced. It's a fairly short movie. The movie has a very, very sweet and heartwarming ending, which is also really funny, and there's plenty of satire and some dark humor here and there. And I just thought it was a really good movie, man. There's a couple of good chase sequences, you know, a little bit of action towards the end, and again, there's a few life lessons, you know, about Christmas and family and whatnot, if you're into that type of stuff. And it's done better here than in a lot of other movies. So yeah, this is my personal favourite Christmas movie of all time. I think it's a really, really good movie. It's my favourite Jon Favreau movie. Like, I like this movie more than Iron Man, for example. You know, I like this movie more than Cowboys and Aliens, you know. I like this movie. I really enjoy those movies, don't get me wrong. But I think that this is Jon Favreau's best movie, just because of how well written it was and how great the comedy was. And as far as Christmas movies go, I definitely think this is the best of the lot of them. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think of this movie, but not only that, let me know what are your favourite Christmas movies, and give me some ideas for maybe some Christmas movies to review next Christmas. You know, let's get some stuff prepared this time. So yeah, let me know what you guys think anyway. I give Elf a 10 out of 10. I think this movie's amazing. It's one of my favourite Christmas movies. Well, no, it is my favourite Christmas movie of all time, and it's one of my favourite comedies of all time. So yeah, let me know what you guys think anyway. Thanks for watching, God bless, and Merry Christmas. Hope you guys are all having a great holiday.